You sitting in a meeting, or a classroom, or a dinner party. Someone says something confidently, and it's wrong. Not slightly off. Structurally wrong. You can feel the flaw in it, the way you'd feel a bone out of place. And in about 3 seconds flat, your brain has already built the counter-argument, traced it to its root, and found 2 better ways to frame the whole thing. But you don't say it. You sit there. You nod slightly. Maybe you look down at your hands, and the moment passes. Someone else fills the silence with something louder and half as considered, and the room moves on. And there's this tiny, almost imperceptible ache that lives in the pause between what you saw and what you said, which was nothing. People have called you quiet, reserved, hard to read, maybe even cold. And part of you has quietly absorbed that, started to wonder if something's wrong with the way you move through the world. If you're too internal, too slow, too much in your own head. But here's the thing no one tells you, and I want you to hear this clearly. You're not slow. You're not antisocial. You're not lacking confidence. You're doing something cognitively expensive that most people around you are not doing. You are running every thought through 3 or 4 layers of context, implication, and accuracy before you ever open your mouth. And by the time you've done that, the conversation has already moved on to something easier. That's not a deficit. That's depth of processing. There's a concept in psychology that Elaine Aron's research touches on, the idea of depth of processing as a core feature of certain nervous systems. Not everyone's brain is wired to take in information and immediately output it. Some people's minds route everything through a longer, more complex network. They're checking it against what they already know, sensing how it connects to something 3 topics ago, feeling for the emotional subtext underneath the words. It looks like hesitation from the outside. From the inside, it's the opposite. It's a kind of relentless mental motion that never really stops. And here's what shaped it. Somewhere early on, maybe in a family where no one quite operated at your speed, maybe in a school where the loud kids got the attention and you got the "she's so quiet" on the report card. You learned something that became a rule you didn't know you were following. You learned that the full version of your mind makes people uneasy, not because you were arrogant, not because you were showing off, but because when you said the thing you actually saw, people looked at you a beat too long. The teacher paused. Your parent changed the subject. A friend made a joke that had a little edge to it, and you felt it, that micro withdrawal, that tiny flinch in the social field. So you started editing. You started offering the 70% version of your thoughts instead of the full thing. You rounded yourself down to fit the room, and after years of doing that, it stopped feeling like a strategy. It started feeling like who you are. But it's not who you are. It's who you learned to perform in order to stay connected to people who couldn't meet you where you actually live. That's the part that quietly hurts. Not the being misunderstood. You're used to that. It's the knowing that the version of you people respond to, the agreeable one, the calm one, the one who listens and nods and never makes it weird, isn't really the whole thing. And some part of you is always standing just behind that version, watching, wondering what would happen if you actually let the full thought out. But you don't, because the last time you did, it cost you something: closeness, ease, the feeling of belonging. There's this weird paradox at the center of it. The thing that makes you brilliant, your ability to see patterns, to think in systems, to hold contradiction and complexity without panicking, is the exact same thing that makes you lonely. Because the more clearly you see, the fewer people you can talk to about what you're seeing. It's like living on a frequency that most rooms aren't tuned to. You can hear everything, but very few people can hear you. And the inner monologue that runs underneath all of it sounds something like this. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I just want to be in a room where I don't have to pretend I'm not. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just, I wish someone would ask me what I actually think. Not the polite version, the real one. Now here's where I want to be honest with you for a second, because this is the part most people skip. There's a version of this pattern that's genuinely healthy. It's discernment. It's choosing when and where to share yourself, because you understand that not every space deserves your depth. That's wisdom. That's emotional intelligence. But there's another version, and it looks almost identical from the outside, where the quietness isn't the choice. It's a wall, where you've gotten so good at holding back that you've forgotten how to let someone in. where the self-editing has become so automatic that even in your closest relationships, you're still offering the curated version. And the person sitting across from you thinks they know you, but they're knowing the performance, not the person. Only you know which one you're living in right now. And I'm not going to tell you, but I want you to sit with it for a second, because here's what this pattern protects you from: rejection. Specifically, the kind of rejection that would hurt the most, being fully seen and still not being enough. As long as you stay partially hidden, any rejection you experience isn't really about you. It's about the version you showed. That's the deal your psyche made a long time ago. And it's a smart deal. It's an elegant defense, but the cost, and there's always a cost, is that no acceptance you receive is ever fully about you either. Every compliment, every moment of connection, every "I really like you" lands on the edited version. And somewhere underneath, there's this quiet voice that says, "But you don't know the rest." Research by Brené Brown has circled this exact dynamic, the idea that you cannot selectively numb vulnerability. When you protect yourself from being fully seen in your depth, you also cut yourself off from being fully received. It's not that you don't want closeness. It's that the closeness available to you always feels slightly shallow, because you're the one controlling the depth. Think of it like living in a house where you've decorated the front room beautifully. It's warm, it's inviting, people love being there. But the back rooms are where you actually live, and nobody gets past the hallway. What other people often misread about you is that your quietness is passivity. It's not. Your silence in a conversation is one of the most active things happening in that room. You're processing tone, subtext, contradiction, motive. You're modeling the other person's perspective while simultaneously holding your own. Psychologists who study cognitive load would tell you that what you're doing in a single, quiet moment would overwhelm most people if they had to do it consciously. You've just been doing it so long, it feels like breathing. And the frustrating part is that the people who talk the most often get credited with thinking the most. But volume is not insight. Speed is not depth. The person who answers first is not the person who understood the question best. You know this. You've watched it play out 1,000 times. And every time, you made the same choice: to let it go, to stay quiet, to keep the peace. Not because you couldn't speak, but because the energy it would take to bridge the gap between what you see and what the room is ready to hear felt like more than the moment was worth. That calculation is exhausting, and almost no one around you knows you're making it. So here's the one thing I want to leave you with. You don't need to become louder. You don't need to put yourself out there more or learn to speak up, as if the problem is a missing skill and not a deliberate, intelligent pattern of self-protection that has been running since you were young. What you might need, and only you can feel whether this is true, is one room, one person, one space where the editing stops. Not because it's safe in some abstract therapeutic way, but because someone in that space is actually paying attention at the level you think. That's it, not a bigger audience. A real one. Being quietly brilliant was never about being quiet. It was about being brilliant in a world that mostly rewards noise. And the fact that you chose depth over performance, over and over, in 1,000 small moments no one saw, says more about your mind than any room you've ever been silent in. What's one thought you've had, in a meeting, a conversation, a class, that you knew was right, but you never said out loud? I'd genuinely like to know. Drop it in the comments. If this felt like something you needed to hear, subscribe. There's more like this coming. Next video, we're getting into something I've been thinking about for a while: the psychology of people who are emotionally fluent in other people's feelings, but completely lost in their own. If that sentence made you uncomfortable, you're probably the person I'm making it for.